Today, we're talking about Greenland. That massive frozen island up at the top of the world that has almost out of nowhere become the center of a new Cold War between global superpowers. We're going to find out why. So, how did this happen? How did a place where minus 30 Celsius is just another Tuesday become such a huge point of conflict? What is it about Greenland that has America, Russia, and China all scrambling for a piece of the ice? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. First off, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this place. We're talking over 2.1 million square kilometers. Greenland is absolutely immense. To put that in perspective, it's bigger than Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Indonesia combined. It is a truly colossal piece of real estate sitting right at the top of the world. But here's the crazy part, the real paradox. For all that massive size, its population is tiny. Only about 57,000 people actually live there, and they're mostly huddled on the coast where the ice is thinnest. That's fewer people than you'd find in a single sports stadium. And this vast, vast emptiness, that's a key part of our story. Now, the reason this whole thing blew up recently was, of course, former US President Donald Trump. He very publicly and repeatedly said he wanted America to acquire the island. And look, this wasn't just some casual, off-the-cuff remark. It was a really clear signal of intense American interest, and it's rooted in a long, long history of strategic thinking. Right? Because while Trump was the loudest about it, he was far from the first. America's desire for Greenland is actually a really old security obsession. It's something the US has seen as essential to its national security for more than 100 years. Let's take a look at the history here. The US has been trying to buy Greenland for a very, very long time. The first attempt, way back in 1867, right after they bought Alaska. Then they tried again in 1910 under President Taft. After World War II, President Truman offered Denmark what would be over $1 billion today in solid gold, and every single time, Denmark said no. Trump's push was really just the latest chapter in a very old book. So, why the obsession? Well, it's Geopolitics 101. Location, location, location. Greenland sits right in the middle of the shortest path between Russia and North America. This isn't just about land, it's about defense. An intercontinental ballistic missile fired from Russia toward the US isn't going to fly over the Atlantic or the Pacific, it's going to fly right over Greenland. Controlling that island means you control the ultimate early warning system. But that old military logic is now being supercharged by a whole new economic reality. Because hidden beneath Greenland's 2-kilometer-thick ice sheet is a buried treasure trove of almost unimaginable value. And this is where the global competition gets really, really intense. Now, to get a sense of this treasure's value, we have to talk about rare earth elements. These minerals are literally the lifeblood of all our modern technology, and right now, China controls about 90% of the entire global supply. That gives them a near-total monopoly and just immense leverage over every Western economy. Well, guess what? Greenland is sitting on one of the world's largest untapped reserves of these exact same minerals. We're talking neodymium for all those EV magnets, gallium for AI chips and advanced radar, plus uranium for nuclear power, silicon for semiconductors, and an estimated 31 billion barrels of oil. So for the US, controlling Greenland isn't just about defense anymore. It's about breaking China's chokehold on technology. Okay, military strategy and mineral wealth. Those are huge factors. But according to geopolitical sources, the biggest reason for this new Cold War, the one that not many people are really talking about, it isn't what's buried in the ground. The ultimate prize is something else entirely. It's a complete game changer that's being revealed by the slow, steady march of climate change. A whole new reality that's literally emerging from the melting ice itself. And here it is, the Northwest Passage. For centuries, this Arctic shipping route was just a frozen, impassable dream. But as the ice melts, a new maritime superhighway is opening up. And just look at the difference. A trip from China to London through this new Arctic route could be 9,000 kilometers shorter than going through the Suez Canal. That's weeks of travel time and millions in fuel costs saved. So here's the crucial point. Greenland sits right at the entrance to this new global trade route. Controlling Greenland is like owning the toll plaza on the world's next great economic highway. The country that controls this passage basically becomes the gatekeeper of future global trade. This brings us to the future, and frankly, the stakes could not be any higher. If the US were to somehow succeed in its ambition to take control of Greenland, experts warn that the consequences for global politics would be, well, catastrophic.
Geopolitical analysts lay out 5 really grave consequences. First, the US would become the undisputed Arctic superpower, period. Second, the trust that has held Europe and America together for decades would be completely shattered. Third, China's economy would take a massive hit. Fourth, unchecked mining and development would probably devastate Greenland's fragile ecosystem. And finally, the indigenous people of Greenland would likely see their culture and their autonomy just erased.
But the single biggest political risk is this. Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark, a founding member of NATO. And the core principle of NATO, Article 5, is that an attack on one is an attack on all. If the US were to forcibly take territory from its own ally, the entire alliance, the very bedrock of Western security for 75 years, it could just collapse. So, as the Arctic ice continues to melt, it's revealing a lot more than just new shipping lanes and old rocks. It's revealing new global fault lines. The decisions that get made about this vast, nearly empty island in the next few years won't just decide the fate of 57,000 people. They could very well set the course for global peace or global conflict for the next 100 years. The only question is, which one is it going to be?